This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
Warning, the following broadcast contains adult language, adult content, frank safety discussions, and stories that might sound unbelievable. But believe me, every one of those stories is true. We didn't start the safety war, but we are going to fight to win it. For our families, for our communities, for our workplaces, and for our lives. Is your safety training old, stale, and hackneyed? Is your safety trainer still preaching a warped version of behavior-based safety? How about safety training that actually addresses your hazards in your workplaces and is not standardized baloney from 25 years ago? Contact the Safety Wars team at safetywars.com or call Jim Posel at 845-269-5772. Remember, if you're receiving this message, you are the solution to unsafe workplaces. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter podcast today, and a little bit off topic, but we'll bring it all back to safety. The message here is that you do not know how you're going to impact people. You do not know what the end result of any one action is going to be. And that's pretty much it. That's what I want the takeaway to be. This past weekend, we lost one of my favorite Star Trek actresses, Nichelle Nichols. My family and I met her a couple years back in Lake Ticonderoga, New York, at Star Trek Tours. Because it was a smaller venue in the middle of upstate New York, just north of Lake George, and right down the street from the southern part of Lake Champlain, we were able to sit down and discuss Star Trek and life with her for about 20 minutes, one-on-one. And I met a couple of other celebrities there. Lee Merriweather was one, and another Star Trek actor there who went incognito. He was a background actor in some episodes. He also was one of the main characters in some episodes. I mean, went incognito. I won't mention who he is because I don't want people to troll him or anything else. My wife and I, especially my wife, a good chunk of her career was an event and meeting planner for celebrities and has met many celebrities and worked with many celebrities over the years. And she was extremely impressed with Nichelle Nichols. She was nicer than you could ever imagine, and that's an understatement there. We found her genuine, and we could see Uhura, Lieutenant Uhura, then Captain Uhura, coming through. My kids could not understand who she was until a couple of weeks later when we saw her on Star Trek, the original series. The first time I remember watching Star Trek was in September 1974. It was one of my first TV memories. It was Star Trek, the animated series, the episode The Practical Joker. Uhura was one of the first TV characters that I even remember. How is this all related to everything we discuss here with safety, life, being an inspiration, leadership, everything else we do? I specifically asked her about the story we've heard over the years about Martin Luther King and his relationship to Star Trek. And I wanted her to explain the story to my son so he could hear it from the source. It's not every day that you meet someone who knew Martin Luther King and could relay a story, a little bit of trivia here. She explained the importance of her character, and as Martin Luther King explained it, it was important for African Americans to see an African American in a future TV series, TV series about the future. And before the 1960s, basically, TV and movies showed blacks, African Americans, however you want to refer to their group, it's changed over the years, as servants, non-leaders, and rather people in the background and everything else. You never got to see them in leadership positions, especially a black female. As the story goes, Martin Luther King heard that she was leaving the series and wrote her a letter asking her to stay because it would show that we made it to the future, even a fictional one. Star Trek also had the first interracial kiss on TV. She was part of it, Nichelle Nichols, when interracial marriages had been made legal the year before the episode aired. This was controversial to say the least and still ranks up there with one of the greatest moments on TV on many lists and surveys and everything. After Star Trek's 3-season run, the original series, Nichols dedicated herself to helping NASA and making the agency more diverse, helping to recruit space explorers and scientists like Sally Ride, Judith Resnick, and Guion Bluford. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the names, and I'm sure loads of other people she's inspired to be space explorers. You might say, well, hey, this is just happenstance. But, meaning that should inspire people. Of course, it happenstance. When you look into her history, she was surrounded by inspirational real-life stories growing up in Robbins, Illinois. Her father was Samuel Nichols. He had humble beginnings as a factory worker. He became mayor of the town, and you might better know him as the inventor of cellophane. How about S.B. Fuller, who was the country's first African-American millionaire? And Cornelius Coffey, Johnny Robinson, who, with Chicagoan Bessie Coleman, founded the first black airport and school of aviation in the United States, both in Robbins. That was when the country, a lot of it was segregated. These are all inspiring stories that she no doubt was surrounded by. People pushing the envelope, people doing things. I was recently reminded by a family member, and everyone knows I recently had a death in the family. However, we were discussing things at the repast. You don't know what string of events you may put into play that will show big payoffs and inspire future generations. It could be in your workplace, it could be in your family, it could be societal-wise, it could be for the whole human race, galaxy-changing things. Maybe you just need to inspire the people around you, and they will inspire others to do great things. That's what Nichelle Nichols did. Inspire people. My question is this: how is your organization doing? How are you doing? How is your organization and you and people you surround who are working safely, who are making their workplaces a better place, making their families a better place? How are you doing that? How are you inspiring people? Are you knocking them down? Because I tell you what, knocking them down has an end result too. Broken people are not good. Having broken people in society are not good. It's not good for the person, it's not good for the family, it's not good for the company. How are you going to better your communities? Rest in peace, Nichelle Nichols. You will be missed, but you're not going to be forgotten. You're immortal. Let's all follow her example. Set a goal for optimism, leadership. Inspire people to do better in their own lives, in their own communities. That's how we're going to win this safety war that we always talk about. For Safety Wars, this is Jim Posel.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.